Trucks. Hello, truckos.
Trucks. Truckos. Ooh, game audio.
Oh, you have game audio. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Truckos, we have to talk.
Yeah, it's fitting that we sit here in front of a train as we start this Trucks. Well, never mind. First of all, we have to scrape off this other guy's
Train.
cap.
Train over there. Wait,
Yeah,
tell me
but
where
there's
the train is fitting. I don't get the metaphor yet.
Oh, it's transitional. We're
I see.
at the intersection of two different logistical modes, and much like this truckload of waste paper that we've picked up from this train station to incompetently haul to somewhere in Montana, we are going to be. Trucks is going to be consciously uncoupling its cab from its trailer. By which I mean that we're going, this is the last sort of quote unquote regular Trucks. We're going to be going on a hiatus. We may sporadically return for if subjects arise that we feel would make a good Trucks, but it's been a struggle lately to come up with anything, and we are both increasingly busy with other stuff.
Yeah, the point of Trucks was that it would be kind of easy to make and still enjoy it, but it just hasn't been that easy to make lately.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly difficult just for both of us to both logistically and in terms of thinking of things to talk about. This has sort of been in my mind coming since I moved out, which was like the first real, this is getting more difficult to do now that we're no longer living in the same house. And I think we admirably kept it up for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Cross country. But we don't really like talk about, or we don't really consume much of the same media these days. We don't have much in the way of like day-to-day life in common, and so it's like sort of difficult to find points of connection.
Yeah.
And upon the completion of the Therapy Trucks arc, which I think was very good. I'm happy with the Therapy Trucks arc. I'm finding just sort of, I've personally been finding like, trying to make sure trying to keep Trucks going a little stressful on my brain. So I think just sort of, this is me acknowledging that this is sort of the state of things. But, it's not over. The Trucks Discord will still be around. We're not disbanding that. We're still going to make Trucks art projects with the whole crew.
Yep. I imagine there will be things on my YouTube channel, either this one or the other one, sometime in the future. Isaac and I are still hanging out. It's not one of those fucking things.
I've always liked your content. I'm hoping that to maybe see some more solo video stuff from you at some point.
Me too. Rain World has been back. I might finally try to make a Rain World thing. I've been planning on making a Hilux thing. They're making a Hilux 3, so I guess I'll wait for that. But
this one, it's 4-dimensional.
Yeah, hope so.
Yeah, so it's like, and meanwhile, my video game consumption is basically just continuing to play Binding of Isaac, and
that's the thing. It turns out when you get older, you play a lot of the same game over and over again.
Yeah, it's just like music. Things become comforting, and I am finding, honestly, that I'm starting to feel the pressure of age on my brain. I'm not as smart as I used to be, I think, pretty much across the board. Which is, it's a little bit distressing, but I'm not less happy, so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm more happy. The other piece of news is that I'm getting married soon.
Hell yes! Congratulations,
I'm getting married
Isaac.
to Kiana, otherwise known as Junk World on Tumblr, Junk World USA, and so yeah. But depending on how long this takes to edit, by the time this comes out, I might already be a married man.
Wow, I didn't know it was happening that quickly.
Yeah, we're doing the sort of we're doing a little bit of a married for insurance purposes thing. That's health insurance, not life insurance. before, but we'll have an actual gathering sometime next year.
Yeah, very exciting, man. Congratulations.
I would like to hasten to point out that this is not the precipitating reason for the decision to put Trucks on hiatus. This is not a Yoko situation, which wasn't even a Yoko situation when Yoko was doing it. So, but yeah, so I mean, we might as well like take this opportunity to reflect a little bit on Trucks as a whole.
Trucks has been around for like most of a decade now, right?
Oh my God! I suppose that I really should have checked because I always forget when we actually started doing this.
Yeah, it was like a couple of years into me living in this apartment, which is the way I measure time. And I think I've been living in this apartment around 12, 13 years.
Yeah, and it would have been around 2012, 2013 that we started this process up. I'm going to, in the background, look up when the very first Trucks video came up by typing Joshua Trevin into YouTube.
Good luck.
Yeah, no, this will take a minute. But yeah, no, it's been a decade.
Yeah, I think we made
more or less.
I think we made a good chunk of material here. I feel pretty good about it.
I
was thinking
episode
about
one, Dinged Him With My Excavator, came out 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
November 2nd, 2013. So 8.5 years ago.
Yep, not bad.
Yep. I mean, that's less alarming. Somehow I think that if it had been 10 years, it would be worse.
Well, now we need to keep doing it for another year and a half, just so we can say we stopped on 10 years. No.
Well, I mean, as you say, we're not necessarily stopping. This is it's the kind of hiatus that Fugazi went on. I hold out hope that they may someday come back.
Yep. I'm sure we'll find a reason to truck eventually. But I think it'll be good for both of us to take some time off of it, and some time where we don't have like the planning of it kind of hanging over us. Like, it's a thing we've commented on Trucks in the past, that Trucks has like subsumed a lot of aspects of our relationship, and in some ways that's been like artistically productive for the purpose of Trucks. But it has that knock-on effect where every time we start to have a good conversation, we're like, well, we should just make this a Trucks, you know?
Right.
And I think it'll be nice to just get to know you outside of Trucks again.
Yeah, and unfortunately it does, like, focusing on Trucks and the various other like creative projects as sort of the locus of our relationship has meant, for me at least, associating a lot of sort of the stress and
Yep, I can
needing to push things along that comes with that, with the relationship itself, and that's not healthy. It's not good.
Yeah.
And I become the version of myself that I don't like when I start getting stressed out about stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, I've had stress about it too. Looking forward to it. Should be rejuvenating, I think. But yeah, let's.
I would hope so.
Let's reflect on some Trucks. I've been thinking about it. Like, many great takeaways from Trucks. I think I've been thinking about the very early days when we were kind of like workshopping and refining sort of a critical approach to consuming media, and that's like, it's an approach that I still like refer back to all the time. Kind of that idea of like, there's the art and then there's the receiver of the art, but the real thing happens in the interaction between, which is such a useful way to talk about it, because it kind of allows you to engage with the thing in like in any way that feels authentic, without necessarily being like, because this is like reminding me of this or that thing I don't like, I'm safe to say, I'm safe to kind of poke fun of it for this, and I'm safe to even like say this is why I don't like it, without necessarily saying like no one should like it. You know what I mean? And other things like that.
I think that we've sort of established a kind of criticism that doesn't involve, personal moral judgments about people who make or enjoy certain kinds of art, because turns out that there's a lot of other better reasons to judge people. I think that, you know, here's a spicy take for the road, since, you know, what are you going to do, cancel us? I think that the major thing that cancel culture has done wrong is to punish people more for what they say than what they do.
Yeah.
And I see cases where, like, a person who, I mean, just for, I take for example, I'm just going to pick for example from professional wrestling, a guy who recently died in a car accident who said some really shitty things about gay people on Twitter about a decade ago, about 8 years ago, in fact. And since then, he sort of recanted all of it. He was a real young man at the time, grew up, and, you know, has, according to all and sundry after his death, and of course everybody's generally going to be positive after his death, but had genuinely changed his mind on the subject and was very, you know, sweet and welcoming to gay people in wrestling. But he wasn't allowed to get on TV before he died because the network knew about what he had said, and they didn't want any of that smoke. So the network pressured AEW not to use him. Meanwhile, AEW has been using a man named Jay Lethal, who, while he was booking the women's division in Impact Wrestling, basically just, you know, did exactly what you would imagine a sexual predator would if he was in charge of a bunch of women's careers, with multiple women. And his strategy has been to not talk about it and to flatly deny it and cut off all conversation about it. And as such, he's safe because he knows how to manage his messaging. That's what people care about.
The mechanics of optics are just fully fucked up, pretty much.
So there's a thing. Pay attention to what people do more than what they say. I mean, that feels like really obvious, and a thing to say on a talking-based podcast also.
What we do is drive truck.
Drive truck. Oh, you know, and well, I was speaking of it. Drive truck is. Oh, actually, I'm gonna nest these. Speaking of early trucks, the subject of one of the first trucks, which was, you know, hey, why come there's lesbians in all these webcomics all of a sudden, has gotten to be nothing but more relevant over the years.
So
to the point where I'm now making an entirely separate podcast basically about that. Which is Wizards vs. Lesbians. If you want to hear more of my voice, you can search that up.
Yeah.
We were onto something that only became more culturally relevant.
Good on us. We were right to be so interested. Oh no, I'm gonna rear-end this guy.
Kaboom! Oh, you rear-ended all three of them. Very nice.
Hell yes.
But what I was gonna say before is, like, speaking of, you know, what is trucking actually?
What is trucking actually?
I've been listening to a pod, and actually it's a YouTube podcast, much like ours, with video elements and slides, called "Well, There's Your Problem" recently.
I've heard of it. Which
is a lefty left podcast about engineering disasters, and I've learned a lot about trucking and rail. And it's like, their positions as good communists is that, you know, trucks bad, trains good. But
they're right.
Even with a more nuanced approach, it seems like it's an interesting thing, this game, that simulates earning a lot of money doing something that in practice tends to make people negative money as independent contractors, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you have no costs besides that of operating your trucking empire, which we don't even do in the way we play this game. We just take contracts and accumulate money, which we never spend on housing or even fuel because our employers cover it. Or truck repairs.
I wish that money, like that little, you know, money total in the lower right hand corner, started at negative blank, which is your truck, you know, payment. It's like how plus interest, how much money you're going to have to eventually pay into paying off your truck. Which
you ever heard of a game called I think it's called Hard Space Shipbreaker? It's like a work simulator, but your job is like taking apart junked spaceships.
I haven't, but that sounds
it does have that premise where, like, you're in debt and you're nickel and diming your way through that debt with this kind of dangerous job.
And I understand, like, the you know, I understand why it's not like that, because that would be both depressing and actively political, and that's not what the developers of this game want to do. But I want to, like, what do you think drives people to want to play this game who are not making like a sort of a weird art podcast with it? Because it is a popular game. Like, it is sufficiently popular that they're continuing to add new states that people are paying like $15 a pop for.
They're all the way up to Texas. That's like halfway through the country. It's no longer just a West Coast game now that they've reached Texas, you know? It's a good game. I think we've always known it's a good game.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's very pretty.
It's very pretty.
It also sort of celebrates this sort of flat toy America. That's like all picturesque small towns. It really doesn't include cities per se. You know, all the cities are also small towns in this version of the universe, and all of the nature is there. We don't see like when I go outside my Portland right now, like it's just the aftermaths of fires and ice storms. You know, I see all these pristine trees here, and I'm like, all the trees around me are either burnt or have had most of their limbs snapped off by ice.
Yeah. It's very postcard America.
Yeah.
And that makes it pleasurable to drive through, of course. And like on the simulation end, people, like, it's a game that kind of gives back as much as you're willing to give it. Like, people go really hard into the nitty-gritty of managing the trucking business, or like doing cooperative convoys and all that kind of stuff. So like you can get pretty, you can sink your teeth in if you choose to. I do wish, like, having read that book you gifted me some years ago, Uncommon Carriers, with some details about what the reality of driving a truck is like, I would be cool to see a little bit more Spin Tires-esque, like, real vehicle simulation in this game. Like, it's apparently extremely dangerous to drive a truck downhill, because you're having to do it in such a way that, like, you need to make sure that the trailer isn't going to cave into your cockpit.
Right. Like, so you have to actually kind of accelerate downhill.
Yeah. Those roads will often have
that's why those runaway truck ramps exist.
Exactly. Spillways or whatever.
I also want to there's a book that I want to recommend to you called The Wreck of the Penn Central, which is about rail rather than trucks, but sort of helps to answer the question of how we got here, i.e. how we got to trucks transporting most of the goods in America from point A to point B instead of rail or another thing.
Yeah, definitely an interesting subject. I've seen YouTube videos on similar lines.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating thing. The more you look at the world around you, the more I mean, that is at least the one thing that I'm happy about as I get older and dumber, is that I'm still learning things. I think that's when you really get old, is when you stop being interested in learning new stuff. But taking in new stuff about the world all the time.
For us, I would say that the appeal of trucks has been, and we've definitely always known this, but I don't know if we've ever, like, we probably spelled it out. Whatever, let's spell it out again. The fact that it forces us into a format where, like, if we're making a cut, you can see it, you know? So it's all truly, purely extemporaneous, no ability to polish the conversation at all. So I like, you know, sometimes we'll make obvious cuts through, like, tech support problems, but...
but it's always because we fucked up rather than because we're fixing something that we said. I mean, we've occasionally bleeped out a name here and there, you know, that's about it. And that has sort of, I think, led to some of the truck spice, because you don't enjoy.
I prefer these days. I prefer being able to
kind of extemporaneous performance.
Yeah, these days I prefer being able to kind of compose my thoughts more carefully. But you know, there's still value.
I mean, this is when you say these days, like you've been talking about that since like we were doing this for like a few months.
Yeah, it's true, kind of always, but also like, you know, it's one of those on the one hand but on the other hand things. Like, yes, I am a little bit more comfortable in that other format, but also I'm glad to have committed to this format for as long as I have. I think it's had a lot of good results.
Absolutely, I agree. It's good to get stuff down on paper, as it were, sometimes. And that is, you know, one of the positives about doing trucks for me has always been, once we've done a trucks, it's done.
Yeah.
We might, if it's a real stinker, we might waver a little bit about releasing it at all. But as a general matter, we've released it anyway, with maybe like one or two exceptions. And there's again, like I'm sure that I've said plenty of things on trucks that are stupid and that I would take back or
sure,
phrase in a more nuanced way if I had another take. But that's not what the point of this is.
Right.
It's been a snapshot of where our minds have been at the time, and how we've been thinking about the world at the time.
Indeed.
And I think part of it is that, like, I think if you sort of look at the arc of trucks, a lot of, if you from point A to point, from like the very beginning to now, like it's gotten a lot darker,
Yeah.
And that's been a product of both the world becoming more overtly fucked, and our relationships with the world becoming more
more adult, I guess you could say. Like
in
the old days,
I
we definitely
agree.
were comfortable to sort of amuse ourselves to death to an extent.
And I think that's it's become much more difficult to look away at this point, I think, for everybody, because it sort of knocks on your door now, or kicks in your door if you're unlucky.
We definitely didn't initially intend trucks to become such a political show, but it happened pretty naturally, and
for better or for worse, it's a lot of what I talk about. Like during the Trump years, I made a rule for myself to distance myself from pretty much all political discourse, just because it was so unbearable. And I think that I would like to return to that, ideally. But it's how I grew up. That's sort of what my dad and I talk about.
Sure.
And so it becomes very natural.
And then yes, as you said, there was that long introspective arc, which I think was kind of spurred on by the Trump years.
Yeah, no, I mean,
like
if we
the
can't
world
fix
is going
the...
to hell, so we might as well get ourselves right, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I think that's sort of the one of the points where I ended up with is like we can't fix the world, but we can make ourselves better able to survive what's coming. And whether I've been entirely successful at that, I don't know, but I haven't broken yet.
Of course, the true gift of trucks has been the community around it.
Yes,
I want to shout out some of the
correct.
I want to shout out some of the guests we've had over the years. Definitely, it was great to have. Springs to my mind. We had James Howell on. We had Michael Carew on, and I'm happy to say that my relationships with both of those dudes has been strengthened, kind of as an indirect result.
Don't forget Will Toledo.
Well, Toledo, of course, yes, but the statement about... Well, yeah,
no,
we're best friends now, but I'm not supposed to say that we're best friends. Will, if you're still watching, thank you. We love you.
Yeah. Will, if you're watching, I will say this. While I've never really dug your music, what has become clear to me over the years is that you've done undeniable service for a lonely and beleaguered group of people, and for being their voice and their public champion. You deserve a lot of credit.
Drunk Drivers is a killer song.
But yeah, no, that is very true. I want to, and like also our friends.
Yep.
I always enjoyed the Nick episodes when we got Nick on. I
sure.
still fondly remembered the Civil War reenactment episode, just at random. That was a fun little dive.
Yeah.
I'd like to shout out B, who came repeatedly to talk about old fandom. I found those episodes were all very enjoyable for me and also educational.
Man, speaking of topics, like old trucks topics that became like massive global culture concerns, the whole fandom phenomenon.
Oh yeah. I mean, now that Marvel Disney essentially owns the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we walked right into that one, didn't we? Eyes open.
Yeah. It used to seem fascinating. Now it kind of just seems trite and grim.
Oh God, yeah, it's really depressing. Like, and I know that one of our sort of. Oh
boy, I'm just.
That's okay.
I'm gonna plow through it.
Just do the dongle, yeah. I mean, speaking of things that we can still agree on politically, let's run over a cop.
If only the game would let me run over a fucking cop.
Yep. And some off-roading while we're at it.
Yeah, hell yeah. If you are still lurking, if you're still lingering in the audience, now's the time to join the Trucks Discord.
Yeah. Come and say hi. I mean, just share a memory or two with us.
Yeah.
You can also do this in the comments section of this video.
Yeah, that's allowed.
Yeah. I had a thought, and it is completely. Oh yeah. Sort of a tense Trucks that we had in the last few years was the one about Star Wars, or one where we talked about Star Wars a whole lot, and that seems like.
I can't remember it.
Yeah, I think that we were talking about whether the Trucks was about whether the Phantom Menace was secretly good.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it turns out it wasn't, but it led into a discussion of, like, you know, what is Star Wars good for anyway?
Yeah.
And
that new show Andor, surprisingly actually good. I'm sure you've heard that before, but it's true.
No, I mean, it's been the pattern that the further away you get from the money, and the less people are paying attention to it, the better it is. With these, which is not to be confused with the ones that they make to extend the copyrights, which are always unbelievably dire because nobody cares about them. But yeah, you can get away with some cool little stuff in the corners, and the TV series seem to be the place for that.
Although most of them have been extremely slop.
I just can't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Why
know,
should
and
you?
it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, I think that, you know, we've long said, you know, I don't want to, you know, we're not yucking anybody's yum. As we started with this, like, there's a whole, you know, you're not a bad person for enjoying this kind of art. You know, you're fine. You know, you can separate the art from the artist, the problematic artist, and it's like, it's really astounding to me in retrospect that we're having all of these conversations, and then, you know, happily eating stuff that was made for us by Disney Marvel.
Yep.
And, you know, assorted other, you know, media megaliths. And that wasn't the more pressing concern, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it might be a problem to listen to this, you know, music by this diaper fur, but, you know, do uncritically eat the, you know, the song of the dying capitalist empire, please.
I mean, I don't think we would ever encourage anyone to do anything uncritically.
No, this isn't us.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, like, the way that the discourse went, you know.
Sure.
And we were always, like, commenting on that discourse as it came about. But it's like, I think at this point, it's, if you want to talk about, like, consuming media or paying for media as a moral action, I think it's probably more moral to buy a zine by somebody who eats kittens than it is to pay for a Marvel movie.
I mean, that's that particular comparison is a little. That's a tricky one, but, you know, I see what you're saying.
You know, I mean, I'm just saying.
I support kitten eating. Directly.
Critical support for the kitten eaters, because they are small business owners.
Yeah, a small kitten eating business.
Exactly, right next door to the dick sucking factory. But be that as it may, yeah, no, it is really interesting how the landscape of sort of media creation and consumption has changed over the last 10 years.
Yeah, we're not even the only people doing trucks anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's a wonderful format. I mean, and I mean, credit to you. You came up with this, and
me. Josh. Only Josh. For the whole world. No one ever came up with it before I did. I think we can agree on that.
Absolutely. No, the concept of doing a podcast while driving a truck is a Josh Trevitt original.
Speaking of, Noah Caldwell Gervais released his like cross country, or I don't remember where it's a road trip to, but people are excited about it. That's a truck's like. It's probably a good one.
Cool.
It's like stitched together footage of his road trip while he talks about destinations and the trip and probably other scattered thoughts.
We did sort of a little bit of that when I moved. We did some live trucking while I was out on the highway, and I did capture a bunch of media from that trip, dash cam stuff.
Yeah.
Intending to do something similar and then didn't. So congratulations for following through, Mr. Caldwell. That's really, most of the battle when you get right down to it.
Yep, for sure. Mm-hmm. What else?
Let's see here. I will always value the trucks when we were kind of drunk or otherwise tired and just made goofs.
Yep.
Together. Those were a lot of fun and probably not something that we can do anymore. So,
my game's freezing up.
Yeah, no, I see that. It's still sort of going though.
Yeah, still sort of going.
Yeah, much like Trucks itself. And wow. I also want to take the opportunity to publicly thank you for editing a bunch of videos for my own projects over the years.
For sure.
I obviously you were credited at the time, but I definitely just farmed you out for this labor a lot of the time. And that's my Despair Mode videos and the Utena music videos particularly.
Oh god, those were grueling but a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I think that you would make a good director/editor if you ever decided to turn your talents in that direction.
I do have a taste for it. I learned like a very specific style of video editing, and every once in a while I've intended to expand that skill set into maybe a little bit of After Effects. Never have though, but I feel like I can do a lot with just plain cuts and superimpositions and stuff.
Yeah, I mean people made classic cinema for 100 years without digital effects, so I imagine you can probably manage. And of course, you're also continuing to make music, so you could score your own pieces.
Indeed.
And the music that you make is, I think, very well suited to that kind of application.
Yeah. All sorts of exciting future possibilities.
Indeed.
This truck is struggling, Isaac. It's struggling.
It is. The stream is struggling. I just got... Oh, I'm getting blue... little blue rings here.
Yeah, I've got a not responding. Okay, but
we're continuing to move.
Still.
The other thing is that I don't know why the other thing, speaking in addition to the personal difficulty of doing trucks, the technical difficulty of doing trucks has somehow gotten much worse. Yeah. Like even over the last, even since we started doing it remotely, and I don't know why.
I have some serious computer problem that I've been struggling to track down for literal years now, and I can't isolate it to a particular piece of hardware. I guess, I still haven't fucking reinstalled Windows, so that is kind of the obvious thing to try at this point. Mm. But what a pain in the ass that is.
Crumbling architecture, ladies and gentlemen. Not pictured here.
Yeah, there
all of these roads are very well cared for.
At all, is there abandoned?
Yeah, all roads are very well cared for. There are no vacant buildings. There's no homeless people living on the side of the road in caravans. It's always spring or summer.
I don't know if this is turning up on the stream or not, but or in the recording, but all the achievements I'm unlocking for exploring the state are called The Last Best Place. Which I guess
that's
is
true.
Like
maybe that's Montana.
Slogan or something.
We just passed 3 postal collection boxes in a row on the same street. You want to talk science fiction?
Oh my god.
Whoa, we just moved back a little bit on my stream.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no way that our audio is still particularly well synced up with the video, unfortunately.
It doesn't, you know.
We're bringing it home. We're bringing it all home. All this crumpled paper representing years of artistic output.
Yeah. Just shove it in the back of a fucking high cube shipping container and throw it onto a truck.
Ooh, nice mural.
That's very nice. Look at them buffaloes. Sunset buffalo. I'm considering starting a Tumblr side blog where I just post my most deranged political opinions.
Why not?
I think that it would be fun and cathartic. I think.
Yeah. See how canceled you can get yourself.
I generally starting to think that I should advocate for massive population culling.
God.
And so we'll see how that goes over.
I'm not touching it.
Yeah, good idea. Today. Good idea. But anyway, I'm glad that we've arrived safely in Billings, Montana, one of the only cities in Montana.
The last good place, the last great place, whatever it was.
Yeah.
We've got a dancing. Hold on. I remember.
Yeah, we did pass a wacky waving inflatable tube bar man.
I can't remember if we've ever actually seen one of these in this game before. I've got to give it some. Here,
He's a little bit worrying.
Oops.
I don't know if I like his design.
I need to remember how to disable this. Ooh, not quite. Is it this button? There we go. Okay, now we're working on a thumbnail. He's waving goodbye to all.
I like the fact that he's emerged from a bucket.
All cars, new used rental. He's emerging from a bucket.
Yeah, it's this little bucket on the ground.
I need him to give like a proper. He's just in a looping animation, isn't he? That was. I think there was a good frame there. I think we're good.
All right, cool. Okay. That's the thumbnail.
Turn my UI back on. Turn my mirrors back on. Okay. Sorry, everybody.
It's still red. It's okay.
It's still red. It never turned green.
Nobody honked.
Yeah. There's definitely some trucks that we're leaving on the table. There's a couple that we could have done. We weren't quite feeling up for it. I think there's a theoretical trucks about Rain World and Disco Elysium. There's some interesting shared themes between those two. Would have been nice to have gotten Jay and Kuru in the same truck. We talked about that. There was some interest. Didn't quite make it happen. Wish it could have happened. Maybe someday.
You could do I think that you and Jay and Kuru, could
for sure.
very, very easily do a little podcasty thing. Yeah. I was never super enthusiastic about that one. You would
have probably been a second fiddle a little bit on that one, but
a fourth wheel, as it were. I've probably played about as much Rain World as you've played Disco Elysium, and so we could have had pretty shallow conversation. Well, we could have had one person talking a lot to the other person about the video game.
I mean, but there's always room for just listening to what someone else has to say.
That is true.
And comparing the objects of our concern. It's worked for us in the past.
But, I think Disco Elysium actually has a lot of common with Bloodborne.
Interesting.
In that they're both secretly about being afraid of women.
Yeah.
Someone, not that secretly about being afraid of women, but that in both cases it reifies itself throughout the entire game world. In more or less obvious ways.
Afraid of women. Sympathetic about the things that make me afraid of women and why I shouldn't be afraid of women, but definitely still afraid of women.
Yep.
That's probably...
Is Rain World also about being improvement?
No, but it is about, like, it has similar things going on. I think Rain World and Disco Elysium kind of both have themes of, like, how you find meaning for yourself in a world which is constantly reminding you that life is suffering, and yet that succulence of life, you still cling to it, you know, all that kind of stuff.
That is true. Weather also plays a very prominent role in both games, although
true.
it will not kill you in Disco Elysium.
And science fictional, ecological disasters.
Yes. Not to mention, you know, weird stick insects.
Yeah, oh
yeah. I think that the thing that really tickles me about Rain World is that it's such a difficult and off-putting game.
Yeah.
And yet, like, the people who like it enough that it's still putting out content.
Yeah. The new content was kind of made largely, like, one of the original Big Two developers is like project manager on it, but not development manager. Pretty much all of it was made by the community. A lot of it started out as mods, but it just kind of got the backing of the company and the publisher, and they packaged it together into something cohesive and kind of greatly expanded the game. Sometimes it feels like fan fiction, but
that's really great.
Yeah.
It was Are people being... Oh, shit. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Are people being compensated in any way, or is it all donated stuff?
I think so. I don't know for sure, but I think so. Because it's, you know...
I'm not asking as a gotcha. I'm just always interested in how that kind of stuff works. That's the thing that, you know, I feel like we talked about on Trucks ages ago, and, like, you know, probably in a Homestuck context, but it's like becoming more and more important as a thing. It's like, at what point is fan material that is elaborate enough to rival the original thing, you know?
Yeah.
Just the product of the people, just the property of the people who made the original thing, because, you know, that's definitely
the fact that
something
they, like,
that's being tested and tried a lot these days.
Yeah. The fact that they, like, and, you know, none of this is guaranteed, but the fact that they charged for the DLC and, like, credited all these modders in the credits of it, like, and it's actually being handled by the publisher and Adult Swim Games and all that stuff. Like, I have to imagine that they were paid for their work. It would be
I'd like to think so, or, you know, if not, are not particularly unhappy, since, you know, I think that anything related to Rain World has to be a labor of, you know,
for sure,
significant love.
It has, you know, this.
It's the whole Wizards of the Coast debacle has had this on my mind recently.
Yeah. Can I, before we move on from it, share with you a small chestnut about this new Rain World content?
Please go ahead.
So, as you might recall, spoilers for the ending of Rain World here. There was the kind of like this, one of the weird central tensions of this game is that the intro sets you up to expect that your objective is to link back up with those other slug cats from the beginning, right? But that's not what happens. Instead, like an AI god tells you that you can escape the cycle of samsara by swimming into a void ocean beneath the earth. And your guy kind of goes and does that, and you're left to figure out why he made that decision. The new game, it adds a prequel Slugcat who does have that happy ending, who can just go back to the treehouse and kind of like be like, hey, I scouted out this new territory with all sorts of food and stuff, and it's like a straightforwardly sweet ending, and that in itself is kind of vibes with the communal effort that the DLC itself represents, you know? Like the community of the game made it possible for this ending to exist in the game. But the really weird and uncanny
as hell, not
in
a bad way.
The real uncanny thing is that once you achieve that ending with the prequel guy, and in order to do that, you need to have beaten the game normally at least once.
Sure.
You unlock the ability to return to the treehouse as the original Slugcat. And so you think you've unlocked a new happy ending for him, and you know, that's like exciting on one level, but it's also like you worry or wonder, at least, if this is like undercutting the original intention of the game a little bit, and it might be. But I was surprised by the handling of it. When you actually return to that treehouse as the original Slugcat, what you get is this very kind of strange and uncanny ending where he returns to the treehouse, and it's just 3 shots of him looking at it from a distance and looking up at it from the base, and then walking into the room. But there's no other slug cats visible. It's just this like kind of uncomfortable scene of him like approaching this ending which doesn't feel like it's actually his for reasons which aren't exactly clear, you know?
That's good storytelling. I like that.
Fun. I've been kind of in interpretation overdrive about this DLC for a while, and I still have plenty of it to play.
Yeah. I'm hitting the downslope of my Disco Elysium obsessive phase, which is relatively brief. But I wrote a little post about this, but I had a lot of fun comparing the 4 political vision quests that you can do in Disco Elysium, none of which are essential. Like, one of the interesting things about Disco is that you can beat the game without doing almost anything. Like, there are so many different tasks you can do, and like, you can kind of just sort of
vibe,
blunt force re-roll your way through the ones that actually get you to the ending without interacting with much of the rest of the game. Although it would be very difficult to know how to do that if you hadn't played the game before. But be that as it may, you don't have to do any of the political vision quests, and the 4 possible political alignments that you can give Harry are fascist, communist, ultra-liberal, which is basically neoliberal, Silicon Valley capitalist wizard, and moralist, which is Democrat, United Nations, sort of European-style centrist.
It kind of attempts to literalize the, we know the world is ending, but we're just going to try to make it end comfortably rather than do anything to prevent the ending of the world, right?
Yes, exactly. That is what you find out the Democrats are trying to do, or the UN, or insert your local centrist political party here, who are trying to make the rest of the world, slightly less uncomfortable while living lives of relative luxury themselves. And, it's just funny to see, the game, the game is brutal about what becoming a fascist does to you, because obviously it is. And it's, it has a sort of wistful, sad, beauty about being a communist, because it acknowledges that it's futile, and that essentially what you're doing is joining a book club with your friends, and the joke is that the communists in your area are members of a particular group who believe that if there is enough communism around, then communists themselves begin to be able to exhibit psychic powers and can move things with their minds, thus solving all of the logistical problems that all you have to do is get enough people to believe in this, and then everything fixes itself.
In that world, it could be true, right? There's a chance.
The metaphor for this is that you build a house of
freebie parking.
A very easy one. The metaphor for this is that you and your communist buddies are trying to build a complicated structure out of matchboxes and trying to hold it up with your psychic abilities.
That's so
And
good.
The more communist dialogue options you picked in the game, the better you're going to be at this. But of course, the punchline is that the game wants to really judge the liberal mode, but can't really, because it is actually a lot of fun. To be rich and to make stupid art, and we all know how that played out for them in real life. So, also, the moralists just straight up murder you. The Democrats come with their black helicopters and bring you to a black site. Cool. But anyway, when I'm sure that there will come up more things that me and Josh really want to talk about, and when that happens, we will talk about them for you. But in the meantime, consider trucks to be sort of a completed thing.
Yeah. And now begins a process of experimentation. Maybe if we make something else, I'll game's locking up again.
Sure
That's
is.
fine. Everything's fine. You know, maybe if we produce something else, I'll post the occasional announcement on this channel or something like that to like go look over here. You know, that seems like a good use for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out the album by Mother Panic, which is called. It has a complicated name. I'm gonna look it up. Humans/insects twitching occasionally, by Mother Panic with a K, because that's a trucko.
Oh yeah, hell
it's the best thing he's made so far. It's
Just
really,
came
it's
out
actually
today.
quite good. Yep. And there are more things of that ilk, and you can find that out by going to the Trucks Discord or by going to trucks.horse, which I think I'm going to actually spend my energy trying to make into something that really showcases people's projects.
Yeah. Thanks for being a part of it, all you truckos, and thanks for continuing to be a part of our lives. We love you very much. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Right on. High five. We did it. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.